Further with Dr. Zaid Kimmie. He's the Executive Director at the Foundation for Human Rights. Dr. Kimmie, welcome. Thanks for your time this afternoon. Of course, one of the other things the High Court in Gauteng also pointed out was that the SCA has already found that there was indeed political interference in the prosecution of TRC cases. This is not a matter that's up for discussion.
Yes, I think that was a gratifying part of the judgment, to note that the SCA in the Rodriguez matter had already determined that there had been political interference. And so, that question, we believe, hopefully will allow the case to move forward. And of course, the fact that President Mbeki and Minister Mbandla may have had additional information about whether or not political interference had taken place or their particular roles. The court also indicated that they had the opportunity to present their version of events at the Commission of Inquiry, the Kampepe Commission of Inquiry. And so they hopefully will take that opportunity to do so.
It is very interesting to think back to what the prosecution's head at the time, Vusi Pikoli, said about the involvement of members of the executive in trying to stymie prosecutions into apartheid-era cases. Can you give us a sense of what he said about that kind of interference, Dr. Kimmie?
Well, I think the main point that he was making was that the NPA was being denied the investigative resources to properly investigate these cases, and that he was under pressure to not proceed with any indictments. There was, of course, before that, this sort of quasi-bureaucratic process to find alternative ways of granting amnesty. Unfortunately, that was stopped by the courts. So I think what we can see over time is a concerted effort not to address these cases, and the result is clearly evident, that there were no further investigations or prosecutions. And so I think the court was well justified in finding that this is not a question that needs to be decided. The Commission of Inquiry will focus on who precisely was responsible, who gave these orders, who followed orders, and where particular blame should be apportioned. But our litigation does not require that any particular individual be assigned responsibility.
I just want to stay with the assertion that Vusi Pikoli made. And part of that thinking at the time was that there was a fear by senior ANC leaders that they might be implicated in TRC-linked charges. What can you tell us about that?
Well, senior ANC leaders had made an amnesty application which was denied. So at least in technical terms, senior ANC leaders were still potentially at risk of prosecution for actions they had taken because no amnesty had been given. So that, I think, was potentially used as a motivation or an excuse for not taking further action. But as to whether that was a realistic possibility or the details of how that was manifested, I think that is something that we still need to find out about and find out further details.
Yeah. I mean, the bottom line is that those 300 cases referred by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for prosecution, that very work has been done. I mean, do you reckon that the idea was these cases would just fizzle out? I suppose no one was thinking that the families of the people who suffered under the apartheid regime would continue to look for answers.
Yeah, I think there was an expectation that these cases would simply wither on the vine, that through neglect, all of these matters would go away. And it's a testament to the families involved in this litigation and other families that have continued to push for justice for their loved ones. And it's, I think, a rebuke to those who thought that they could simply look the other way and claim that prosecutions were stalled because of other factors, people not having enough time, people being overworked, other priorities. That, to me, is all nonsense. And it's no better illustrated by the fact that once the NPA, after 2017, again began to apply itself, inquests and prosecutions have followed. They may have been small in number, but that gap of 15 years demonstrates how much more would have been possible had the state taken on this burden and prosecuted it with sufficient vigor at the appropriate time.
I mean, there is this fight now for constitutional damages, but I would imagine, and I have no idea, I couldn't possibly put my feet in the shoes of those who have walked this journey in trying to find justice and look for closure, but I imagine constitutional damages are paltry in a context where those who possibly have knowledge of what happened to these people's loved ones, those who possibly were the perpetrators of their deaths, their disappearance, their kidnappings, have now died, and closure is almost impossible.
Yeah, and this is precisely why the constitutional damages case is proceeded, because the possibility of justice, of finding the original perpetrators, those opportunities are rapidly disappearing. And what we have now is a question of those whose responsibility it was to pursue justice, their constitutional responsibility, the thing they were paid to do, did not do their jobs. And that is a further miscarriage of justice. And the constitutional damages the families are asking for, that money will go towards making sure where there is still a possibility of further inquests and prosecutions, that the families are supported through that process.
Yeah, and that money will be put into a trust, if indeed it is one.
Yes.
Dr. Zaid Kimmie, let me thank you for your time this afternoon. Such an important discussion. He's the Executive Director at the Foundation for Human Rights.